Happy Thursday and welcome to a special edition of the Veeam Tech Bytes show. I'm Rick Vanover and I have a great topic, the case for all flash backup storage. And I have one of the graybeards is with me, a longtime friend, Howard Marks. How are you doing today, sir? And it's sunny on the eastern half of the country, right? So I don't know if that's a good sign or a bad sign. And
Predicts more snow, but I don't believe rodents in terms of weather prediction anyway.
Yeah, I'll go with forecasting models myself. So, big change. Howard, you're now in New Hampshire, which was threw me for a loop. I'm in Central Ohio enjoying this sun. We've got one of our producers in Massachusetts, another producer in the U.S. state of Texas, but we got to know where you all are tuning in from. I got some people from Israel on the line coming in on the chat. We are Cameroon. That might be a first. Awesome. And we are quadcasting on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, if they're all working. So we did have a small delay here when we get started. So, Howard, before we get into this, give us an intro. What's your name? Where are you from? What do you do?
Okay, my name's Howard Marks. I am technologist extraordinary and plenipotentiary at Vast Data, which means that I got to Vast really early. I joined Vast the day before we came out of stealth. And Vast does large scale all flash storage at the cost of spinning disk. And that's why it makes sense for backup.
Yeah, and so Howard, I've known you even before that move. You've known me even before Veeam. And for the others in the industry, Howard is really one of these people in the industry that I truly admire and respect. He, semi-analyst, always involved, has a lifetime plus of experience in enterprise technology with maybe a slight jade to storage, I think. And he's truly one of the best. And I remember we chatted. I think it was at one of the VMware events. You're like, I'm thinking about making a move, and then you told me this, and I'm like, what? Who? How do you spell that? I like the V.
I did spend 40 years as an independent consultant and analyst, so it shocked people when I took a job.
Yeah. And but I will tell you this: Vast has come on the scene, a Veeam partner, and doing some interesting things with what we have coming up. Right. So really good stuff. And, Howard knows this stuff. And so he came up with this title of the case for an all flash backup and restore. And so let's jump over to the screen share and tell us about your view of the market over time, Howard.
Well, historically, we viewed backup as insurance that we paid premiums for and we hoped we never had to make a claim against. And in reality, the claims we made, the restores, were both relatively rare and relatively small. Somebody, some DBA screwed up a database. We had to restore that database. But that the amount of restored we did was relatively small, and it was almost all on demand. And that meant that we started viewing backup as long as I can get the data on the backup repository overnight in whatever my backup window is, that's the only performance requirement I have. Since restores are small and rare, restore performance was just something we didn't pay attention to. And if you look at the kind of storage we've used for backup over the years, it's always been the cheapest thing we could find. It was tape, and then tape, while it's still cheap, became problematical for other reasons, and SATA disks came along as affordable, and we got deduplication to make SATA disks even more affordable, although that hurt the restore performance because deduplication means the media on the back end is really doing random I/O, and SATA disks are bad at random I/O. And then everybody started looking at cloud and going, 1 cent a gigabyte a month. Well, that's a small number. Not doing the math to figure out that 1 cent a gigabyte a month is not 1 cent a terabyte a year. It's cheap because it's small units. And so historically, that's been the issue. But ransomware turns that on its head. Because when you suffer a ransomware attack, first of all, you're not restoring one VM. By the time you know that you're under attack, that software's been encrypting your data for a while. Even the best of detection today is my backup tonight detects that it started encrypting this morning.
Yeah, so you hit on something really important. Let me unpack a little bit of this in Veeam speak. So I'll say it's almost, there's a historical thing here where people are always seeking less expensive storage. And actually, I'd go so far to say you can always find lesser expensive storage, but that's not always a good thing. And it was this historical kind of crutch that you may have needed. But I'd say that one of the big trends like that have happened in the market is digital transformation, right? It's underscored, it's underpinned the criticality of a lot of the systems that we are protecting. And then other things like virtualization and cloud cadence type platforms allow us to deploy new things basically instantly. So then we get into this conundrum of, hey, I need to restore something. No, I can't wait till tomorrow. I can't wait 4 days. I can't wait 4 hours, right? I need it back now. And so this history kind of walked us into a kind of a trap of sorts, right out of Admiral Akbar's forecast. It's a trap.
Right.
And so,
and you guys came up with the first exit for that trap with instant recovery.
Yeah.
But instant recovery is kind of capacity limited.
Kind of, but have you seen Veeam lately, Mr. Howard? I don't know.
I have not spent a lot of time with Veeam 12. But it comes down to you've got a Veeam server reading data out of the repository, reconstructing it, and serving it via NFS. And that Veeam server is going to be a bottleneck. Now, if you do your software really well, it'll be a bottleneck at 50 VMs, not at 2 VMs. But eventually, you start saying, I need to have 10 of those servers to support enough VMs, and it gets unwieldy.
Well, I'd go one step further and say that Veeam is a lot like a bicycle. Okay. Now, this is a bold statement here, Howard. Veeam is a lot like a bicycle in that your experience is 100% predicated on the environment in which you use it. Okay. Mm-hmm. So if we are trying to, and I put you in a trap to pull you right back out. If you do a whole bunch of instant recoveries from the cheapest storage you're going to find, you're probably not going to have a good experience, right? That's probably one of the consequences of being so software defined here at Veeam. And it's also really tough for us to kind of take a favorite or make a recommendation to the market. But what I do like is next generation storage is high performance, and then right here on this slide, affordable ways to get these positive performance outcomes that can use these software defined techniques like instant VM recovery on scale, because we do have high with multi-VM instant recovery with it has a couple of like high water marks that it has had, but it always depends on the underlying storage. But it sounds like you guys are going down a path of making that affordable.
Well, so we've done a lot of things to make Flash affordable. We start with the very cheapest Flash we can buy, which today is QLC, but we're ready for PLC when the Flash foundries come out with it. So when we write to the Flash, we manage wear on a system-wide basis so that the concerns about QLC endurance go away. We have very efficient erasure codes, under 3% on large systems of overhead, and N+4 protection. So we can lose 4 SSDs. The system keeps running. There's still less than 3% overhead. And then we've just continuously improved data reduction. We do compression in many ways. We do data deduplication in variable size blocks with an average size of 32K. And then we add a new technique called similarity that helps us save the changes between two blocks that have a lot of identical data in them. The problem with dedupe has always been if 1 byte changes and you're deduping on 1 gig blocks, you save a gig. Similarity gets us a way around that. And then
that's smart, by the way, because a lot of people, I'd almost say much like RAID, deduplication is kind of a bygone thing. Other techniques that are storage efficiencies may be more attractive. I think that's a really similar thing. Erasure coding is the new RAID. Other techniques are the new dedupe. Is that too bold of a comment, or am I kind of close to where you're thinking.
dedupe is still important. But the other thing is when you dedupe to spinning disks, you turn a sequential read into random I/O on the spinning disks. Same thing happens when you're doing dedupe to SSDs, but SSDs are good at random I/O.
Yeah.
And so we restore 8 times faster than we back up, as opposed to
Whoa. Hold on. Did I just hear everything multiplied by -1, that everything I've always known in my life? Say that again.
So if you back up to a data domain, when you look at the data domain spec sheet, they say you can write to us this fast. They don't even have read speeds on this sheet, because you can read 1/4 to 1/5 as fast as you can write because of this randomization of I/O that we've been talking about. Our system is asymmetric just the other way. Our smallest system does 4 gigabytes per second of write and 40 gigabytes per second of read.
Oh, it's interesting. I mean, a lot of people still favor backup appliance, purpose-built backup appliances. You know, I've tried, Howard. I have tried to talk to people out of their number one top-level goal is storage efficiency. There are people that cannot get away from that, and I'm sure you've spoken to them too.
Well, the truth is, there's a certain amount of data reduction you can do in the backup software. But because you can't tell people to buy a 384 gigabyte 24 core server to be the media server to do the dedupe, you have to make compromises to say, well, we'll dedupe on big blocks so that we don't have to keep a huge bitmap in memory. Well, we keep our bitmap in SCM, so we can keep it as big a bitmap as we want. And one vast system, even of 100 petabytes, is one reduction realm. Where if you were buying data domains, every data domain is a separate dedupe realm. So if you have VMs that dedupe 100 to 1, but you have 4 data domains, you're not getting 100 to 1 dedupe, you're getting 25 to 1 dedupe, because there's going to be a copy of each one of those VMs on each one of those PBBAs. Being a scale-out system, we provide the ability to do that all in one realm. But the other thing is, because it's a system that was designed for primary storage that does backup well, as opposed to a system purpose-built for backup and nobody thought about doing anything else with it, you have a lot more accessibility to your data. You can use the data, you can do full text indexes, you can do scans for all kinds of malware in the backup because it's accessible at reasonable speed. And then go to the next slide, because the really interesting thing comes restore time.
Well, before I do that, producers, just let me know that the map is ready. So we're going to jump to the map real quick. I'm going to start in the Americas here. We got a whole bunch of Canada going on, and I know some of these people in the chat, so hello, everyone. We also have Florida, Georgia. That's a joke there, Florida, Georgia line, Virginia, and then California, in addition to the states we started with. Let's head over to EMEA. We've got the Netherlands, Germany, Estonia, Greece, Turkey, Hungary, and Romania, Israel and Palestine in the Middle East, and then in Africa, DR Congo, Cameroon. That may be a first for one of my streams. Kenya, Tunisia, and Zimbabwe. So thank you all. A couple good questions come in. A lot of people talking about replicas, storage snapshots, really good points as well. But yes, Howard, back to content. What about the restore? I like to say backup for show, restore for dough. Tell me how you make that work.
You only back up to restore. Restores are what matters. Backups are just how you get to the restore. And what people don't recognize about that ransomware problem is, so you got somebody opened an email they shouldn't have and opened an attachment they shouldn't have, and ransomware is floating around your network. And it floats around for days or weeks or months, and then it starts encrypting your data. Now you have to clean your systems. And your lawyers or your insurance company might want the infected systems as evidence.
Mm-hmm.
So where do you restore? It's not like when somebody screwed up a database or a RAID set failed and I have to replace all of the data, because the primary system is questionable. It's going to take hours to take that system, wipe it all the way down. I mean, you run software-defined storage. Everything's based on Linux. The Linux is infected. You got to wipe that machine down to the roots and start from scratch. It's going to be many hours before you have a restore target. If
you're lucky, Howard, I debriefed of one situation where that took 4 weeks. But the reason why it took 4 weeks is because they were able with Veeam to just redirect the restore to another site, and they had to go partly to a service provider for some of the infrastructure, but they had that portability to go elsewhere. They didn't plan on it, but that root cause investigation can take weeks.
So if your backup repository is fast enough to be primary storage, use it as primary storage. Do instant recoveries till you figure out, okay, for this VM, this was the last known good version. That's a good one. And then storage vMotion it back to an NFS repository on the same VAST system, where you'll get all flash performance for as long as the emergency remains. Now, somebody out there is going, wait, you're recommending having your production and your backup on the same system. So yes, in those cases where all you have is backup and there's no place else for production and backup on the same system temporarily is better than no production at all.
Well, and then you seek that third copy.
Temporarily is the key word here.
Yeah.
And so I object. Purpose-built backup appliances had their day, but when you're purpose-built for backup, it means you're not built for everything else. And we're built for everything else so that we can provide additional facilities.
So couple things to unpack here, and I want to highlight a comment from Matt Crape here from Canada. He says, really, without the proper plan, a ransomware attack can be just as damaging and impactful as those fire, flood, and blood disasters that we traditionally prepare for. I can't agree more with you.
I might
Matt.
say more.
Yeah, for sure.
I might say there's more cleanup.
It's harder because there's more risk actually. Yeah.
Well, there's all the work you have to do to make sure that you're not reinfecting. If your data center burns to the ground, you just start over. If you're dealing with equipment that has been attacked by ransomware, then making sure that you clean every piece of equipment before you rejoin it to the network and that nothing infected ever gets back in is really time consuming.
Well, I'd go one step further and say, statistically speaking, by some of the research we've done here at Veeam, a cybersecurity incident, including ransomware, is the type of disaster by the numbers people are much more likely to encounter compared to fire, flood, and blood. So, yeah, fair shout. So, well, one question for you though, Howard. I love this whole idea of, the backup target has the chops to be production storage. I think that's actually that's consistent with some of the advices I've given to people, in the sense of, you want to be able to restore and use it. And you might ask the question, why not just go with a persistent instant recovery? And I'll tell people that that's not designed for a long-term running technique, right? It's designed to, I get things running and then identify the target. So then I would recommend, if VAST is the platform, then you do the recovery to an additional NFS or other type of share. In fact, now I'm thinking about file shares for instant recovery that have that same capability in V12, right? So it's more than just VMs now. There's conversions to other hypervisors, and there's physical stuff, right?
Right.
Physical systems instantly converted and restored as a virtual machine, right? So all these different types of workloads kind of come into the mix here. So no, this is a very interesting model, pretty unique. I don't see all the storages, Howard, but this is one of the first kind of stories like this.
VAST, all flash systems were designed for performance first. And they're literally too expensive. You wouldn't buy the typical block storage all flash array with 100 microsecond latency because the cost is going to be too high.
No, it's untenable. Absolutely.
Because we make large systems, we get economies of scale. Because we have all of these efficiency features in, we get the cost down. And so, we can sell you gear at a lower dollar per usable gigabyte, even before the improvements in reduction than the PBBAs. And you get all the other benefits.
Nice. So, help me kind of put this in like the Veeam term here, right? So this is a nice graphic of your organization, your partnership here with Veeam, universal storage, one platform for all data center data. I kind of like that angle. Veeam is super software defined. We're really laser focused on that. Really, all the leading primary and secondary storage systems, we want to partner with them all. We're calling that freedom of choice. But tell me how it sits like in this view here.
Hit click a couple more times this
morning. Oh, it's a build. All right. So Howard trusted me with his slides, everybody. So he's pretty brave.
Right. So ours is a scale out system. There's two pieces. There's the boxes at the bottom you see with our logo on them that hold the actual media. And those are HA boxes. They're JBOFs. They just hold SSDs. The intelligence is all in a series of servers that present NFS and S3 and SMB. So if you're using us as a Veeam repository, you can write to us via NFS. We have indestructible, immutable snapshots. So when a job finishes, a snapshot can automatically be taken and protect the data. Or you can write to us via S3, and you guys will, and Veeam will manage the retention via S3 object lock. So either way, the data in the backup repository is protected not only against ransomware, but also against rogue administrators.
Oh yeah, accidental deletion, new person on the job. Yeah, I got stories, Howard.
Well, it goes from fat-fingered accidental deletes to people actually blowing things up on their way out the door.
Disgruntled employee. Those scenarios happen. Absolutely.
Yeah. And ransomware protection works by protecting against privileged users, and so we protect against privileged users all the way to you can't delete that backup till it has to be deleted. So if you go to the last slide,
I think this is the last slide, boss.
Okay. Well then, never mind.
Yeah. So I think. I'll push click. I'll see what happens. Yeah.
No, that was the last slide.
That is the last slide. Look at us, professionals. But I did get a word from the producers that the map is ready. So we're going to switch over to the application real quick. Got a couple ads. We'll start in the Americas. We've had more California and Georgia, Florida, Virginia. We've also added, that's the wrong one. Indiana we added. And then over in Europe, we've added Sweden, France, Belgium, Slovakia, Czech, and then down in South America, we added Chile. Yeah, I was wondering, where's my Brazil, Chile, Argentina people? So thank you all for tuning in. We have a good-sized crowd here today. But Howard, we are getting close to about that point in the show where we do need to wrap it. I guess it's vastdata.com. Where can we go?
Vastdata.com. Hello@vastdata.com for general inquiries. Howard@vastdata.com for me. This is what happens when you join a startup at the beginning. You get the one name email address.
There you go. And I think you're still Deep Storage Net on Twitter, right?
I am.
One of the OGs. Oh, late edition from Portugal, Montius. Not forgetting you. So,
and now on Mastodon.
Oh, there we go. Hey. Yeah, been playing with that. I'm not sure on that one yet. But so a big thank you to our producers, William and Felicia, really putting this together. Sorry for the late start, everyone. We had a little the work they do, friends, to laser beams, internets, it's craziness. I don't know why they put me on it, but I'm so grateful that they work so hard to pull these shows together. And thank you, Howard, for being with me on the show.
My pleasure. Always like chatting with you, Rick.
Indeed. Him and I go way back.
Adult beverages.
Hey now. There you go. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. That concludes our stream, and have a great rest of your day.